Okay, so how's everybody doing? So I'm going to do this German camo net. Maybe for those of you that aren't familiar, they're actually quite heavy. Like this is made of rope type, so and in 1/16 scale. It's fairly significant. So like some of the things that you might take for granted, like in 1/48 scale or smaller, or even 1/35 scale, you can't really do that in 1/16 because it just becomes too abstracted, and because of the scale magnification, it'll show, right? And this is what I'm discovering more and more with this layout. The deeper I go and the further I get along, no, I can't let that go. Like one simple subject is not always so simple. It's doable, but it just requires that extra level of detail. So you can see what I'm doing here with this jig. So this is just from some of these bases I buy for dioramas, and I was thinking the other day, well, what can I use to set up a jig for doing this netting? And I've done this before because I've actually built several, probably about half a dozen period ship models in the past, like through my prime. I wouldn't do it now, man. They're way too labor intensive. However, I learned a tremendous amount of modeling skills by doing historic ship models. Okay, and this is the best book ever made. Like I've used this so much that it's falling apart, but it's by Sterling Publishing, New York, Wolfram Zumanfeld, and it's a translation from German to English. And see, what is the ISBN number? Is right there. I'll put it at the top. ISBN 080695733-6. This, anyone that's into ship modeling should have this book because it's the best there is. Like this is the Bible, basically. So you can see what I'm doing with this netting is I'm doing a simple clove hitch. Okay, and I'll zoom in a little bit closer, but I'll show you further out first, and then I'll zoom in to show you how to do this. It's really a simple hitch. Like once you figure it out, like muscle memory takes over, and it's really not that difficult to do. So you can see I'm running lines here. I've run my horizontal lines on this grid. Now I didn't make this completely square because I don't need that much of this. Actually, I only need about maybe 2/3 of this for the top of the section of the bunker. So I just made the size of this, which is plenty. And these squares are about 4 inches, like about 4-inch square. Okay, so that's about roughly a 1/4 inch in 1/16 scale. Give or take here and there. So what I do is you can see like I'm chasing it down, and I'll just show one here and then I'll zoom in and show you closer. But I run this line underneath like this, okay? And then I run it underneath one more time, so it just loops around. That's it, it's just a simple loop, okay, like that. And then I do it one more time, but I go in between like the loop here, and that's it. And I just pull it like this, okay, and I cinch up a little bit like that, and there's the hitch, see? And if these are tight, these should line up pretty good. And also you can take tweezers, you can cinch up the hitch if you want, and slide it and adjust it. So when you get them all done, you can eyeball down and just like adjust them a bit, because you will get some run out eventually. But because it's a camo net, there's going to be so many undulations in it, you'll never notice that anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom in a bit closer and do another one for you, okay? Okay, so we've zoomed in a bit, and I need to mention one more thing. So notice how there's another type of rope here. See the heavy rope? And then I'm doing this weave right now, or net, okay? Now, one of the things with ropes I find, and I learned this in period ship modeling, was the real key was not so much exact diameters, but the variance. Like all the different sizes of ropes, as minimalistic as they are, really makes up the whole greater whole of the model. Like that's what gives it the greatest impact, when you actually notice the different diameters of rope, etc. So this is by Billings. If I didn't mention it, you can see here, it's just a Billings rope, which it takes paint and stain really well. You can use tea, coffee, acrylic paint. I wouldn't recommend enamel, but you could if you want to use oil paints as well. And then, so that's by Billings, which is really common at a lot of hobby shops and so on, or if you just Google them up, you can find Billings ropes and so on. And then there's these here. Okay, so here's, see if I can pronounce this. Artisania, anyway, Latina. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but this is, so where's this? Oh, it says made in Hong Kong. Okay, there you go. Anyway, this is heavier, right? And it's obviously darker. Now I'll be able to paint some of this. This I'll be able to paint. I can probably bleach this out with some sand, like, you know, Vallejo sand color, because this will be this heavier rope. See that? So I'll really be able to do justice to this German camo netting, which I'm really happy about that I had this kicking around. You know how it is in your model kit, how you save stuff, you know, years for years or even decades, and it comes in handy on a specific model, as if to suggest that, you know, deep down your subconscious knew, right? Anyway, so there's this last hitch. So this is what I do. So I put this under here, and this is just a piece of evergreen plastic 80 thou, and I crushed the end and drilled a hole for an eyelet and just made a big darning needle out of it, or, you know, and then bent a curve in it, which really helps tremendously. So I got that in behind there like that, see? Then I'm going to do one more. Keep it to the right like this, and get rid of some of that loose there. And then I'm just going to pull it like this, okay? I can leave that loose. It doesn't matter if it's cinched up yet. Now this is what I do. So I do it again. You're always going over the top and then down. This time you go underneath through the eye like that. Okay. And then I like to grab this. Once you're comfortable though, this goes a lot quicker. And then you just cinch it like that, see? See that? And if you want to tweak it, you can just slide it over. You can slide any one of these knots along the actual horizontal line. Okay, so I'll do one more. Okay, so you can see how I tie off the knots on each line to this main border line. Like, let me just show you a couple of photos so you can see the corner of the camo netting. Got these off of Google Images. Like, they're pretty unique. Like, they have these metal rings and like on the corners, like the line runs through and then it ends there with the loop, and then there's another loop. It's quite sophisticated in many ways. I guess so that they could repair them, because there's a lot of time invested. Like, these would have been handmade probably back in the 40s. But and then there's these wooden handles, like these little wooden to pull and to drag, because these things must have been heavy, especially if they got wet. Here's another shot of the full length. I think these are about 10 feet by 10 feet, like around there. Like these particular ones. You can see the main rope that I'm adding in here, like running in the center and the perimeter. I'll end up airbrushing this camo net down, like knocking it down when it's done. So you can see there's the center of it, where all the lines run to the center, and there's a ring holder there as well, if they wanted to prop it up like a tent, I guess. And then here's a really good shot I found of all the tackle and how they seize the rope. Like, here's the border rope, which is this rope here, which was really dark. I'm gonna lighten it more, but this will all probably be kind of a khaki or olive green anyway, probably. This is more of a buff, kind of almost desert tan colored. You see the metal ring. So this, like these center lines that come in like up the middle and up on it, there's a metal ring, and then there's another seizing here with this rope, and then different seizing here with a loop, right? You can see the different, I think the advantage, or the trick, I guess, is to use different gauges of rope. Like I have 3 different gauges here, and this, there'll be 4 on this rope, because it's 1/16. Imagine doing this in 1/35 or 1/48. Anyway, you can see that wooden handle right there, right? So they could grab a hold of it, you know, and reef it over things and stuff. Pretty cool. You can see the lashings along there too. So that's basically what I'm doing, and you can see this. Oops, sorry. This main rope, I just cut a really long length of it. Like you'll go through a few spools. Like the main grid was one of these, and then this is a little bit smaller I'm using for the lashing, and then I have this thread for the smaller lashings for the loops, and then there's rope like this. You can get all this rope from most hobby shops if they have an account with their supplier under Billings. This is all Billings rope, and then just sewing threads and etc. Okay, and you can paint all of it or stain it. So I'm just running. It's a bit tedious. I don't mind the work personally, but I wouldn't want to make too many of these. Just one. Anyway, so I'm just going to tie off these now, and then when they're done, I'm going to make separate pieces to run down the center like this, crossways, and then I'm going to loop, like I'm going to make loops like this, and then I'm going to lash and then tie them off. This is all basic, you know, kind of work that I learned from doing period ship modeling decades ago, so I'm kind of familiar with it, and there are good books on it, like period ship modeling books that'll show you how to do all the lashings, all the rope work, etc. Okay. Okay, so the main net, camo net, is done with the outside rope sewn in. Okay, you can see it's looking very much like this. Looks really authentic, actually. It was worth the work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these reinforcing ropes, and you'll notice that what I did is I added in the little ringlets. Like, see these little, they look like galvanized, well, they're metal. I don't know if those are original, but I think this actually camo net is from the war, but maybe those were replaced. I don't know. You can see I added those in by using some rod from Evergreen Plastics. This was 5/32 rod. I'll just show you. Number 225 5/32 tube, and I just roll it on a cutting board with a knife, just eyeballed them, and then squeeze them in. And if the loop was a little bit too large, then I just grabbed some thread and tied a knot and just wrapped it up tight against the tube and cut it off and put it, and then took matte medium actually with some water, and I just soak the end with 50 whatever water and matte medium, just to soak the rope first and chase it with matte medium. Once that dries, like, they're not going to come out, so you do that a couple of times if you want, just to ensure that. And then I have these, so I'll tie these in and then do the other loop work, and then I'll have a look at painting it. But you know, I'm kind of liking it the way it is, but some of them were this color as well, but we'll see. Okay. So before I paint this camo net, I forgot to mention about these, like these wooden, like, pins here. Like I mentioned earlier that they were like you know, for pulling on the camo, but they're not really for that. I mean, they would have done that, but what they're actually for is I'll show you. is they would use them to join camo nets together. Like if they had another, you know, whatever, they could join as many as they wanted. They would just take the wooden pin like this and slip it into the rope loop or clevis like that. Okay. And that's how they would join them together when they'd string them over whatever vehicles or bunkers or whatever. And then if they moved on, for example, then they could just unhook them, of course. And then they also had these loops here too. So they were really well made. They were made to, you know, to take a fair amount of abuse and weather, and could be repaired easily as well. Okay. How's everybody doing? So I just want to talk to you briefly about the color, like why I chose these two colors to get to this finished color of the German camel netting here. So I have this book here. It's called Panzerwaffe Tarnfarben. This is a really good book, by the way. I'll just show you who it's by for those of you that maybe don't have it. This is Panzerwaffe Tarnfarben, which basically means tank camouflage, and it's the camouflage colors and organization of the German Armored Force, 1917 to 1945, by Carlos D. Diego Vaquerizo. I hope I pronounced that right. Abuling 502. So this is an excellent book. Like I found it to be like finally a book that's really not like pedantic and like too heavy. You know, it's not like a dissertation. It's really for the layman, and it describes everything just like in simple terms as to why the colors were picked, like the evolution, like why they chose artists the way they did to basically come up with these colors that are on this plate right here. Okay. And it all made sense because, you know, I mean, we all have a history, a lot of us, like if we're older now as military modelers, we had ideas back then, but now like new knowledge and research and everything kind of nails it down, and they finally came out with a book that's easy to reference and read and understand why they did this. Okay, so you see this color right here, it's figure 13, 1941 to 42 Gelbron RAL 8000. That's the color that I was after, or like for this net. Okay, with a type of tan look to it, because this is the way it looks. All the photos I've studied, the research I've done is most of the camo netting, at least in Normandy on the coast at that time, was Gelbron. So, or a variation or value or tone of it, right? It wasn't dark like this here, like olive grun, or like this Felgrau, you know. It just, I mean, I saw only one photo of a really dark net, but it was black and white. It was probably because of the light and shadow. And I think I know why they did it this way, and it's kind of bizarre because when you build in large scale, you see things differently. Like they really make more sense, which is why in film they use large scale models, because they film better. So here's the two colors, right, that I used when I finished the rope work. So there's Tamiya acrylic XF line buff. I dumped all this buff out into another bottle or two, and then I just filled it full of thinner isopropyl alcohol. So I had this stained buff color, and I just started, like I almost shot like the whole bottle, which wouldn't have been the paint, it would have been mostly IPA, which would evaporate really quickly, but it toned down all the rope and sort of unified like all the seizing and the border rope and so on, but still maintained the sort of distinction between it all, which I really liked, right? And then I thought for the final color, because this is exactly, like this is Tamiya XF49, and it's exactly this color, like Gelbron. Like it's exact, like maybe a hint, like this is a little more yellow in it, but light takes care of that, okay? Like we forget that sometimes, you know, scales, tones of colors, time of day, etc., etc. So that's what I did. I dusted this down, but I thinned this down to about well, I made 3 bottles out of this. And I just oversprayed it, and I thought, okay, that's it. I just knew that it was right, or like it just met the eye test. So here's an example. I'm going to show this on the model, like at the end of this, quickly, just to show you how it kind of contrasts with the diorama in the progress that it's in. It's still far from done, but I'm getting there, right? One model component at a time. And this is a model component. Now here, look at this. See how it lays down? So the idea or philosophy of German camouflage, or the way of thinking then is they understood that during World War I there was aerial reconnaissance. So camouflage had to not only work like from the air, but it had to also work on the ground, like when you're looking like vertical or horizontal. So you see how it's sort of dark, but it doesn't really cast a shadow though. Because they say in the book that shadows were the problem with vehicles. When it made a dark shadow from a solid object, it would give the vehicle away. Whereas the camouflage, the light goes through it. It doesn't create a shadow, see? See how there's no like shadow, like the light coming from over here, it does, like, see that? And then look from here, like there's a little bit of a shadow, but it's soft enough, right, that it doesn't make that sharp line and give, you know, like betray the, you know, the vehicle in the landscape's presence, like, you know. And then when you look at it from the side, like look how the Gelbron comes in, see? It's there still. See how it sort of shifts and changes color? I mean, it's genius in a way, like, you know. But I only was able to experience that, like what I just showed you, because of this, you know, because I made this. And I learned from making a model, like a scale model of camouflage netting in this larger scale, like I learned something, you know. So that's what I love about modeling, is it's education, well, it's inspirational and it's educational, and you learn things that you wouldn't otherwise know. So I'm going to put this on the model and we're just going to see, I'll give you an idea of where it's going to go, and we'll see what it looks like the color against the, you know, the appropriate sort of gray bunker and some of the terrain there, okay?